Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I don't know if you saw this short or not, but this is the engine the pistons are for. Now, this engine's got a nice little story about it. This is a real Dove 429 block, but it's not a factory 4-bolt block. It was converted. The speed shop I used to work at here local in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia built this engine probably 25 years ago, thereabouts now. A friend of mine had it done to go in his car. He has never put it in the car. It was in the car, he took it out and rebuilt it, and never put it in the car after he rebuilt it. So what we're going to do now, in the meantime, it's 545 inch stroker, Kazi heads. It's the original Cobra Jet heads. We're going to take all the internals out of this motor, and we're going to put them in a 460 CJ Motorsport block. We got him one right before they quit making them, and waiting on the pandemic and time to get to it. We're just now getting to it. And as I said in the short video, this is going to be a build series, and we'll go through it like I've done FE build number 1 while we continue to wait for parts for FE build number 2. So yeah, I do more than Windsors and FEs. So right now I'm going to go ahead and get the pan off. We're pretty sure everything's standard, but it's been so long we need to check. So for tonight I'm just going to pop the pan, which it hasn't been off in 25 years, and we're just going to check the rods and mains for size. I'll get some bearings for it. This engine's never been fired, so we're effectively opening up a time capsule, brand new 25-year-old hot rod 460 stroker motor. Be back in just a minute. Okay, so let's see if we can get lucky and do a little rat-a-tat-tat with the rubber hammer and get this bad boy to break loose. And it looks like we can. There we go. We're loose. Now don't let that fool you. That pan wouldn't have leaked. And we're in. Now this thing's been sitting inside in my friend's garage for 25 years. It had oil in it, and he was coming out regularly, and this is important, regularly, and rolling this motor over. The only reason I'm going to change out the rod and mains is because we're changing blocks. And we also don't know if this crank got turned because it's been so long. So I'll pop off this cap here that's easily accessible, and we'll pop off a main. We'll check our sizes, then I can get bearings coming for it, and depending on availability, it might be a few days, it might be a couple of 3 weeks before we get bearings. Then we'll continue with it. So it's got Oliver rods and a Crowler crank, and this is a conversion. I think you can still buy these. This is a 4-bolt main conversion for a stock 460 block. And just in case you were wondering, I said it already, but it's a Dove block. So it is a real 70, 429, 460 block. So let me get some tools and we'll get this thing apart and see what we're dealing with. So we're going to do a little forensic disassembly here. Wow. I'm going to say them rods are torqued to about 80 pounds. And the reason I'm going to pull one of these caps off instead of the 2-bolt cap is I don't want to mess with the seal area and all, so that way we can set the pan. You see the gasket's still on here. This way we can set the pan back on while we're waiting for parts, and this thing doesn't get contaminated or rust or anything. So far with what I'm seeing, I'd be comfortable reusing everything in it except the rings, valves, springs, and bearings. But I don't have the rest of the part yet. But I also know this motor's never been started. So, kind of got a leg up on the information track on this one. Now, you want to put your bolt back in the hole you took it out of. And this one's still covered in the ARP lube that was put in it way back then. I'm going to set these out of the way so they don't fall in the engine. Bottom bolts on the left, top bolts on the right. Okay, now I'm going to do something that you got to have a little bit of feel for before you do it. And I'm going to use the butt of the hammer to try this. With these Oliver rods, they got a considerable sleeve dowel in them. And I don't have any way to get a cap cracker in this thing with it in the block. So what I'm going to do is turn it up here like this, and there you go. Because this motor's never been run, I was able to do that. If this motor had been run and had heat cycles on it, the rods would have been expanding and contracting, and they would have bound to the dowels more. Now as I pull this thing out, you'll see what the dowels look like. So for right this second, I'm going to see if I can pull it back up a little bit, which I am able to do. Cap's loose. I'm going to go ahead and pop this off. Top bolt's on the right. Bottom bolt will shortly be on the left. And the bearing stayed on the crankshaft. You want to keep this orientated the way it was. And here's the bearing. We have a slight mark. Your clevites. I need a paper towel. I have my silent assistant today. Okay. It is a standard CB743H, a standard H. I'll set it back in there. And in case you're wondering, see this little chamfer right here? This side doesn't have a chamfer. This side is your crankshaft side. That's where your fillet and your crankshaft rides, is in that little fillet right there, or cutaway. This is where the two rods hit side to side. This is your side clearance here. So this cap would go this way in case there was any doubt. Like if I had taken this off and walked away and couldn't remember whether I turned it this way or that way, that's how you can tell. Now that was easy because we know this cap goes with this rod. And they actually did not number these rods. And I know the guy that built this engine, and that's a little odd for him not to do that. So there must have been something in the paperwork saying not to mark these rods. But he did have to clip the cap a little bit for balancing purposes. Now we're going to probably have to get the engine rebalanced. No, probably, we'll get it checked. But the question is, how much will it need to be rebalanced? But we'll find that out moving forward. So I'm going to sit this right back in here, wipe my hands off, go get some stuff, and we'll take a cap, our main cap off. Okay, so I already broke the side bolts loose, and I already broke this main loose, so now I got to do this one. Yeah. And again, I'm going to follow the same sequence. Again, all we're doing is taking this cap off to confirm what we are allowing for memory. Everything should be standard. All right, so I need my rubber mallet again. Get it out, you'll be able to see it, but the block is keyed. Comes in, drops down, comes over, comes in, drops down, comes over for each of these caps. So it's not an easy process to convert this thing to a 4-bolt, but it is doable. Okay, so I lowered y'all down so you get a little closer look at it. I rocked it back and forth until it come up a little bit. So what I'll do now is get these 2 screwdrivers under it, and the trick is, see, it'll come right up as long as you go under it straight. And there's the main. Let me get rid of these screwdrivers. And see the key? Wow. Okay, So now that we've got the bearing, we know what we're dealing with standard bearings, which we just needed to confirm that. I'm going to go ahead and bolt everything back together. Now, I should have mentioned this a minute ago. This threaded hole right here, you can put a bolt in here and then make a tool that sits against the side of the block, hooks the little eye that you screw in, or the bolt, however you want to do it, and you just rocker it and it pops the cap out. Well, we don't have one. So that's why I went with the 2 flat bladed screwdrivers. But when you do that, you can't drive them in. You have to tap it with the rubber mallet and work it up enough to slide under, and then you've seen how easily it came up. That lets you get it up without gouging your surfaces or damaging your block. And you'll notice I left the oil pan gasket on. Even if I wasn't going to put the oil pan back on this motor right now, I would have left this here simply for removing the caps. Then I'd have put them back later and or taken them off and removed this later. Now here's another little feature that we're going to be able to update because he hasn't run this motor. We've learned in the last 20 years that when you do these stroker 460s and even stroker small block Chevys and all, sometimes these oil pumps will break off from harmonic vibration right along here. And I may have mentioned this in another video at some point. I really don't remember. But what we'll do is we'll go back with a Mellon Select or a Moroso, whatever the client chooses to put in his engine is what we'll get, but we'll get one with the large base to eliminate the potential of having that problem, because it doesn't seem to happen to all of them, but all it takes is that one and you've got a bad engine out there, and people never remember all the good engines you build, they remember the one bad. So what I'm going to do now is snug these back up. I'm not going to tighten them all the way. Now, in some ways, that's not a good thing to do if we were to sell this engine or whatever and don't tell anybody or forget to tell anybody that we had it apart to work on it. It's got a loose cap and a loose main. And if they were to go ahead and start it, well, shortly they're going to have a bunch of broken parts. But we know we're going to be getting back into this pretty quick if all goes well. The sticking factor there being my work schedule. So I'm just going to pull it back down and give it a good snug. That way we can still rotate it. Won't get in its own way. This one goes on the bottom. This one goes on the top. We'll just run these on back in. And the same thing again. We'll just give them a good snug, and that'll keep everything out of trouble. And then we take the oil pan and get it back in place. And we could just stick a few bolts in it, but we'll probably go ahead and put them all back in, that way they don't get lost. And there we have it, the beginnings of the 545 build. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you found it interesting, informational, or at least entertaining. As always, practice your skills, learn a new one. Either way, turn it into craftsmanship. You never know how far it'll take you. So until next time, this has been Fab Race Mod Repeat. Have a great day.